Hi, I'm Steve Miletto from the Teaching, Learning, Leading K-12 podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast. For each week, we talk about a free piece or two of technology that you can use in your classroom. I'm your host, Shanna Martin. I'm a middle school teacher, technology and instructional coach for my district.
And I'm our producer and husband, Fuzz Martin, and this show's statistically more likely to get done if I'm producing.
Well then. Look at your fun little pun.
Yep.
Yay, episode 205.
Mm-hmm.
It's still very wintry here in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
You'd think there's been some very pretty sunrises and some very pretty sunsets lately. Like we can see a sunset because we're outside of a building by the time the sun sets. So that's fun.
Yes, but also winter can go bye-bye. No.
Thank you.
We may have seen Mufasa recently. But yeah, I am well over the winter.
Yes.
Ready for summer. Glad we're going somewhere warm for vacation for spring break. I'm just kidding. We're going somewhere colder than here. Okay.
There'll probably be more snow too, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Yay. So we have a fun little mathing site today to talk about. Also, shout out Ed Camp Elmbrook is next weekend.
Oh, yeah. Elmbrook.
So
Ed Camp.
We love Ed Camp.
Wisconsin.
Yay. Ed Camp. It's happening next week, Saturday.
Woot.
So that's fun. With that, though, there's a tool I found. I shared it with our math teachers that would be helpful for elementary, middle. It's a fun little mathing site. So it is the NCES Kids Zone is what we're talking about. The site itself is nces.ed.gov/NCES kids/. So it is a super fabulous mathing education site with all kinds of cool things. So my top little 5 cool things about this site before we go into all the details about it. It is great for math resources. So if you're going to graph with your kids or do some probability things like that, I'll kind of walk through the different tools it has, but it has lots of cool, great math resources, which our math teachers, a lot of them follow a specific curriculum, but they're always looking for ways to supplement that or have options for kids to work at home with families. So that's also one of my highlights. You as a teacher can work on this independently, help your students with it. Students can work independently and parents can use it at home. So if you are looking to support your kid with different math tools at home or some extra practice, this is a great site for that. It's not really gamified, but it's using real math tools, which is awesome.
Sure.
It's really easy to navigate. There's these there's big buttons along the side, tells you exactly where you're going. Very easy to find the information. It's a great way to build on current math discussion. So if you're using a specific curriculum and you want to build on specific graphing tools, or if you want to add, they even have a cool math problem of the month. That could be one of your bell ringers at the start of class. So there's a lot of just extra tools that you could use just to supplement the math that you're already using in your classroom. And there's all different kinds of tools to choose from. So it's not just one set of tools to pick from. So there's just a bunch of different resources, which I think is awesome. And just a great way to help kids with math. Because I know a lot of times if kids are kind of stuck on something in math, they need another approach or something else to look at to maybe in that way might help them think about it. So it's the Kids Zone. So it's NCES Kids Zone. And there are all kinds of tools. So let's talk about the tools. The first one, there's an educator's corner. If you click on it, it does talk about specific fast facts about the national assessments for mathematics. It also has other resources. So it links to different blogs or helplines. State education reforms just links to all kinds of resources for teachers, which I always appreciate teacher resources because you can find stuff. But one of my favorite parts about this is the create a graph button. I don't know if you're already there playing around with this.
No, I'm rolling dice.
Because we'll get to the dice rolling. Okay, so it's a create a graph. And what's cool is there are examples to show you. So if you're stuck or you want just quick examples for students to be able to use, you can see graphing. So there's quick graphs. But if you are going to do it yourself, you can choose either bar graphs, line graphs, area graphs, pie graphs, or like XY graphing, like graphing. And so I'm going to create a bar graph. You click on bar graph, or you have your students click on bar graph. And then the tabs, it almost looks like a little notebook. The tabs go down the right-hand side, like design, data, table, or labels, preview, and then you can print or save it. So kids can create their own bar graphs based on information. So I'm in a bar graph. I'm going with the vertical bar graph. I'm going to use, a rhombus shape.
Nice.
Because it's an option.
That's pretty cool.
My background color, I'm going to switch it from white to yellow because we could use a little sunshine. My grid color, I'm going to make it dark purpley blue.
Okay.
Grid lines, I'm going to change it to 8. I can make a 2D or 3D. I'm going to make a 3D because why not? And then once I've clicked on all those things, you can click the little update button on the bottom, and then you move to your next tab. So then data. So you actually plug in your own data. So I just finished back in December with our math teacher. We did a social studies math project based on national parks, and we had the kids pull data based on national parks. So population of people coming into the park, what times of the year, what types of population, if they're camping or visiting. So, and we had the kids graphing, and this would be such a cool tool that I didn't have then to be able to actually graph the information we're talking about. So my graph title, we're going to do dogs. And then my access label, we're going to do family dogs. I don't know. I'm making things up now, obviously. I'm going to do, or the other way, family dogs versus number of them. I don't know. Source, you can put your source of information in there onto. Data sets, you can put in groups, labels, data, again, all the things you can put in there. I'm just going to put in random numbers because why not? Because I can. So I can graph out this information. So I have an image for everybody because it'll be fabulous when I'm done. What are you graphing right now?
I'm graphing Fuzz's cups of coffee. And it's days of the week and then number of cups of coffee that I drank.
Lovely.
Yeah.
And then you just click the add the information and update it. Labels, information. You click preview. Boom. Graph.
Graphed.
It's fabulous. I have my cute little dogs graph. And now I have it all set. I was taking a little picture of it, and I have this bright, pretty yellow background to brighten our day because it's like blizzarding. It's not actually, but it just feels like it is because it's cold outside. Boom. I have a graph made. And then what's really cool about that is you can start a new graph. You can erase your graph. You can copy the graph, and then you could print it if you want to. So as a teacher or your kids, they can download it, and then they can add it to a project, a presentation. They can throw it into a Google slideshow. They can use like this link then or download it so they have the image, and then they can use this graph that they created. It makes a cute little graph and really easy to use. And if you're not working with spreadsheets and stuff and you just need kids to like quick crank out a graph, this would be a great way for them to plug in information. So it's not all of the extras. So I'm thinking like early elementary, you could teach them how to plug the information, and it teaches them the different types of graphs.
Sure.
A great way to practice that. I know a lot of our state testing is based around reading graphs and interpreting graphs. So you could have kids making them and interpreting each other's, which would be really helpful. How did your graph turn out? Did you choose a bar graph?
I did. I choose a bar graph. I went with a rhombus, but then it looked because the kind of 2D shape that I created, it looked like it was 2 bar lines. So I switched it to regular.
A more clear visual.
Just a regular bar graph.
Cool. So that's like the create a graph. So that's just another button on there. They have a test your knowledge button, which is an option. They have education quizzes. They have math teasers, which I think is cool. If you click on the math teaser, they have like a little monthly challenge about Lego building. So it's like these 2 kids are building all these Legos. You have to figure out the math problems to be a great math discussion problem. And besides just one, you can check out other maths. So you can other math teasers. So you can go back into like past or previous months and you can see the different questions they have. So if you want to pose different questions to your kids, you can do that. They have different reports. They have different education data that you can pull from other publications. They just have so many resources, which are really helpful. And that's pretty cool, where you can go through and see these cool little test your knowledge things. They also have the play games, which is where you were before. And they have a chance activity where you can do probability and you can roll the dice. It'll tell you after like 50 rolls or after 23 rolls, it'll tell you, and it gives you the little graph. Again, if you're interpreting graphs, it's showing you all the different ways like the rolls would look. So you can practice some probability with your kids. They have a little word search that you can do with just teacher and math things. And then like math teachers that's in there. So there's just some really cool, very easy to navigate, use math tools. I think my favorite piece is the graphing piece, just because I love that you can quick make a graph and you don't have to do a bunch of extra background teaching to get a kid to graph versus sometimes if you're trying to do something in sheets, you have to like teach that process along with it. So I find that to be very useful as well. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and they have a cute little student poll in there, and there's, again, resources for kids. So along with resources for teachers and educators, they also have support for kids, and I think also some family support too. So check it out. You can do all your mathing practice. You can graph how many cups of coffee. You can graph how many pencils were removed from your classroom.
Yes.
You can graph how many whiteboard markers have the tips punched in on your whiteboard.
Right.
You can graph
how many times, I don't know.
Kids raise their hand.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it's just kind of a cool way to graph. And again, there's other tools to use too. So I suggest you check it out. Even if you're not a math teacher, this would be just a fun one to check out, find some resources and some cool information. So the NCES Kids Zone, I suggest you check out and try it out with your kiddos and do some fun mathing.
Yeah, very good.
Because we love mathing.
We do love mathing. By the way, this is part of the National Center for Education Statistics from the government. That's what NCES stands for, not to be confused with NCIS, which is the Naval Criminal Investigation Service.
Yes, great.
And also a TV show on CBS. So
on that note, thanks for tuning in. This has been the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast. If you ever have any questions, you can find me on Blue Sky, Threads, Facebook, Instagram at SmartinWI. And if you want to get more information on the links to the technology discussed in this episode, you can visit smartinwi.com. If you'd like to support the show, please consider buying me a coffee too. Visit buymeacoffee.com/smartinwi or visit smartinwi.com and click on that cute little purple coffee cup. Your donations help keep the show going. New episodes each week. Thanks for listening. Go educate and innovate.
The ideas and opinions expressed on this podcast and the Smart NWI website are those of the author Shanna Martin and not of her employer. Prior to using any of the technologies we've discussed on this podcast, please consult with your employer regulations. This podcast offers no guarantee that these tools will work for you as described, but we hope they do. And we'll talk to you next time here on the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast.